Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee for meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, nycweathernow.com. Those are and ssstormchasers.com. Those are the sites, the four sites that you should be looking at with regards to the latest on Hurricane Matthew, which came ashore this morning as a Category 4 hurricane. The eye is now beginning to emerge off the western tip of southernmost Haiti and getting ready to move toward the east coast of Cuba. And if you look at the eye, as you follow it, it does disappear because it does move over the land, and the pressure has risen a little bit. But it looks like the general motion now is a little bit west of north, and this is on schedule with regards to beginnings of a turn to a more northwesterly course. So we're going to now start really paying close attention to where it moves inland over Cuba, and then how far west it gets, because ultimately that's going to determine where this winds up. Want to point out there is a new tropical storm Nicole. We pointed out yesterday what was going on up here in the Atlantic northeast of Hurricane Matthew, and you can see it here. It's really gotten itself organized. There's a pretty well-defined center underneath a nice little core of convection, although most of it appears to be on the east side. So we have a new tropical storm. Now, right now, it exists outside of the sphere of influence of Hurricane Matthew. But as Matthew moves more northwestward, this is probably going to wind up eventually getting pulled in and absorbed by Matthew. But it's very interesting that you should have these tropical systems so close together. It does happen from time to time. Now, I thought this would be a great time to just examine a couple of scenarios if they were to play out, because I think there's a big misunderstanding in terms of what to expect. I think people are most people are very reactive to the idea there's a hurricane coming, but they really don't know what to expect in terms of actual conditions, because where we live, track means everything, and also the fact that we're so far north that we oftentimes have to deal with these systems that go through transitional phases. So, I've got people asking me that are 10 and 20 miles inland whether they need to evacuate because of coastal flooding issues. And I think I'm going to explain this. I'm not forecasting this, but just so that once we have an idea of what the final track will be, what you can expect. Now, I pulled up 3 different models to sort of illustrate this, because each one has a different outcome. 2 of them are hurricane models, and one is the global GFS model from last night. Now, this is the HWRF model that focuses on the hurricanes, and you can see what this model does with Matthew. It takes it inland between Charleston and Wilmington in North Carolina, just east of Charleston, it seems, and then actually carries it pretty far inland. It looks like it's west of Raleigh-Durham here, almost into east central North Carolina. Then it turns northeastward, weakens, but still has a fairly deep pressure, probably in this case it's a Category 1, and then moves northeastward to east central New Jersey, and then moves into southwestern Connecticut. So if we were to get a track like that, what would you expect? Well, for one thing, the inland track would suggest certainly that this would probably weaken to a tropical storm, or if you look what happens as we get closer, as the system gets closer to us, the isobars kind of spread out a little. This is part of that sign that I was talking about, that you might be going into some sort of post-tropical storm state. In other words, it'll start looking more and more like a late fall winter type storm, as opposed to a true tropical storm. So what happens is that the wind field tends to spread out. The strongest winds diminish. You have a larger area of gales, but a smaller area of hurricane force winds. So you can see where the red areas are winds of 58 knots or higher. Those winds, as it moves northeastward, tend to disappear, and then as the low goes by, the gales are confined to the coast. Now, this track would also while I think there would be some coastal flooding, we have a first quarter moon this weekend, which means we're on a low tide cycle. So that's going to help. And the fact that this system is not really out here somewhere, it's not coming in from the east. It's not like it's pushing all this water toward the shore. It really doesn't get over the ocean completely as a circulation. Only part of it does. So I would tend to think that this would probably be the best case scenario in terms of outcome. Not that we wouldn't have a rough 12 hours to get through, but it would be the one that probably would be the most manageable. And the heaviest rains with this would shift. There would be an initial shot of rain for coastal areas in southern New England, but the heaviest rains would then shift northwestward. Okay, so this is one possibility. Now, the GFDL model shows us another possibility. And I think of the three I'm going to show you, this is probably the one that would be worst case scenario, in that it takes Matthew inland in northeastern South Carolina, straddles it just inland of the coast, and brings it out near Virginia Beach. And then as far as this time frame goes of the model, it takes it to east of Atlantic City and south of Long Island. If you wanted to jump at another frame, it probably would be just south of Montauk. Now, this would probably more than likely produce a larger area of strong winds and possibly some hurricane force winds, or gusts at least, for the coastal communities, and even some stronger winds inland. It would also produce a scenario of very heavy rains for about 12 hours for just about this entire area from New Jersey to southern New England. But that would be a big plus because of the fact that we have the severe drought. So that would at least be go a long way to breaking the drought. The GFS model, for example, was forecasting 6 inches plus rain over this area based on its track. And if that happens, that would be a positive that comes out of this. As far as coastal flooding is concerned, the low on this, if it were to come on shore, then for Long Island, there would be some potentially serious coastal flooding issues for some areas, but not all. And a track like this that's offshore east of New Jersey, yes, there would be some coastal flooding, but this is not, again, this is different from Sandy, which came in from the east. So this is coming up from the south-southwest, so you would have a different outcome. Now, the third outcome to look at is the GFS outcome, which takes a low off Virginia Beach and passes it northeast and south of Long Island and out toward Cape Cod. Now, this scenario would produce the heavy rains, would produce gusty winds, and some rather strong winds, as indicated here. There are some strong gusts to hurricane force just offshore, so that's relatively close enough that you'd want to, we might experience that. The heavy rains would be, of course, drought breaking. The coastal flooding would be there, but it would not be extreme. I think there would be moderate to pockets of major coastal flooding. But again, also in this scenario, it's something that's coming out from the south-southwest. It's not coming in from the east. So those three factors make an absolute huge difference in how all this plays out. So, going forward, just pay attention to specific forecasts in terms of track. And again, I'm not saying that any of these tracks are the ones that are going to happen. It's quite possible that this could wind up, maybe it goes back to being further offshore, in which case, effects will lessen even more, or further inland. Still have to work those details out for the long term. And also, in the meantime, the rest of the work week is fine. Probably much of Saturday is fine, especially as you go north and east. So we'll just leave it at that. We have the latest post that explains more about this on meteorologistjoechafee.com, so go ahead and check it out, plus all your local weather. And don't forget ssstormchasers.com, because they will be tracking and storm chasing this as it moves up and down the East Coast.